North Carolina, the Tar Heels ranked number 5, 96-71 over Miami. Bryce Johnson, 16 points and 15 rebounds. Number 8, Xavier, kind of a sleeper team right now, 88-70 over Georgetown. Number 15, Dayton, loses to St. Bonaventure, 79-72. It was Louisville, ranked number 18 over number 20, Duke, 71-64. And number 24, Texas, goes down to number 25, Baylor, 78-64. The big one in the National Basketball Association tonight, the Golden State Warriors trying to rebound from that 32-point beatdown last night at the hands of Damian Lillard with 51 points. And the Portland Trailblazers go up against the Los Angeles Clippers tonight. Clippers-Warriors coming up a little bit later tonight. It's Dave Smith. It is NBCSportsRadio.com.
This is KCAA.
In 2007, very few were able to benefit from the housing market crash. Since then, major banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Deutsche Bank have been very quietly investing in what we consider to be the bank's best-kept secret. In fact, they have already amassed around $240 billion ready to move. We're talking H2O. You know, water. It's now considered the most valuable commodity on Earth, and it's finite. To find out how you may be able to make money with it, call for a free report. Dial 1-800-379-5302 and just say, "Send me the free water report." It's that easy. Even ex-presidents are invested in water in one way or another. By 2030, it's estimated 40% of the globe will suffer some sort of water scarcity. This is your chance to help the environment as well as potentially bank some nice profits. Get a free water wealth report now. Call 1-800-379-5302. That's 1-800-379-5302.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Dave Murth. This afternoon, sunny skies, a nice day, 78. For your evening, clear, calm, 50. Warming up to end your weekend tomorrow. Staying sunny and dry, though, mid-80s. By tomorrow evening, clear, 55. Monday, sunny. The breeze will pick up, 87. That's your weather forecast for this hour from KCAA 106.5 FM and 1050 AM. The stations that leave no listener behind.
Like to spend a few days in another world? Then write this down. Golden Bear Cottages, Big Bear Lake. Now, listen, this is not some corporate-owned operation. It's family-owned and operated by some real nice people. Unique? Oh, you bet. Golden Bear Cottages features 28 one-of-a-kind cabins on a 5-acre historic site. Great for families, couples, and groups. And cabins are available with 1 to 7 bedrooms. Golden Bear Cottages is just a stone's throw from Big Bear Lake and super close to 3 great ski areas. Now, I could go on all day about Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear, but to see everything, just go to goldenbear.net. Again, goldenbear.net. Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear. Clean, comfortable, and affordable. Check them out. goldenbear.net.
InfoTrack is the weekly show with information you should know. Hi, everybody. This is Chris Whitting, inviting you to join me each week for InfoTrack.
Sundays at 6 a.m.
Right here on CNBC KCAA 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
I know a place. Ain't nobody crying. Ain't nobody worried.
Welcome to the program. Good to be
Ain't no smiling.
As you may know, paramedics work in teams of 2, and today I brought along my partner into the studio. Matt, say hi to the folks.
Matt Medic here. Danger. Code red. Do you copy?
Oh, Matt, there's no code red here. As you can see, Matt tends to be a rescue Randy. Like so many EMS guys, he would run over your grandmother in a crosswalk just to get to a good emergency.
Copy. All injuries stable. Over.
That's the way they talk. I try not to talk that way, but some people get a little more enthusiastic than others. Consider this show, the Paramedic Heretic, an engine diagnostic check for your mind. When you run diagnostics on your BMW, You're doing a safety check to prevent further breakdowns on the roadways. When you tune into the Paramedic Heretic, when you choose to make it a point to wise up a little bit about health care, that puts you in the driver's seat to dodge medical potholes many times over in your future. Yours and those folks you happen to care about. Trust us on this. If you knew that for some reason you had to walk into a lion's den tomorrow, wouldn't it be a bright idea to stop and learn a little bit about lions? So fasten your mental seatbelt and don't listen to us on the podcast at bedtime. We don't want to be responsible for your freaky doctor nightmares. We don't need any of those phone calls. We are, after all, your weekly session of healthcare attitude adjustment. Consider us your chiropractic counselor. And as you're about to find out, in healthcare, reality bites good folks in the butt every minute of every day, of every week, of every month of the year. Yeah, it really does. And we always like to remind you that unlike many stations, KCAA Radio does indeed offer a pretty cool asset called podcasts, which means you can tune into this show and some pretty good other shows on KCAA at any time, day or night. And the station provides a marvelous public service. Now, folks, I need you to listen to me. What we happen to be faced with in modern American culture that we have created is an undeniable, inarguable, unimpeachable, brain-thumping slice of bizarre world. Yes, we have. We have allowed ourselves as a culture to fall ludicrously in love with a process that is supposed to cure us of our maladies, and that would be modern medicine. Whether you realize it or not, the odds are overwhelming that you already worship at its glittering church, you kneel at its altars, you obey its scriptures, you stand in awe of the healthcare's priests and priestesses, adorned as they are in their heavenly costumes. In short, you pray to false gods and their wondrous powers while they string you along and tease you by dangling your physical and emotional salvation just beyond your reach. We have become so goofily blinded by the Hollywood act of this church, which we inanely call healthcare, that we'll believe anything it tells us. I know, I used to believe it all too. We have become mindless third graders on the lawn, following strangers like candy. Never mind it's dangerous. That's a chance kids are willing to take. After all, the guy's got candy. There exists no better example of our Cheerios for brains insanity than an entire nation of Americans stubbornly ignoring the fact that modern medicine kills 600 of us every single day. And it's well on its unstoppable freight train course to eliminate 200 of you, us, between today and Super Bowl Sunday, 2017. Better hope none of them are planning on buying Super Bowl tickets, because they're not going to make it. Are you counting all the zeros in 200,000? Now, you maybe have heard of 6 degrees of separation, the concept. That's the theory that everyone is only 6 steps or less away from knowing any other person in the world. So in your particular case, for example, there exists a stunning chain of only 6 people between you and any person in the farthest reaches of, say, Siberia or Madagascar. So a guy on a bicycle right now in New Zealand, tootling down the roadway, knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and lo and behold, those 2 people probably know each other. We find the entire concept outrageously cool. What does that have to do with healthcare? It means there are innocent patients dying every week that are merely 6 degrees of separation from you. Healthcare gone bizarro? Well, yeah, damn it. It affects all of us. You don't have to take our word for it. Please don't. Look it up. Type healthcare deaths into any decent search engine and watch what pops up. It might make you want to vomit. The ugly fact is, you are 1,000 times more likely to be killed by healthcare gone wrong than by pesky terrorists that the news media loves to banter about. When's the last time your favorite news show bothered to warn you about dangerous healthcare? The answer is, they won't. They bow and pray at the same church of modern medicine that you do. And unlike Donald Trump, they're scared to death of ticking off the Pope, and that would be the Pope of the local hospital. So they ignore society's real monsters. They ignore those 600 deaths a day that happen unnecessarily in hospitals, and they cover all those cool high-speed freeway chases instead. As long as American medicine is allowed to hide its demons, it is naive and stupid to view its practitioners and managers as invariably good people. Make no mistake, the gallimaufry of medicine has always engendered a fertile ground for capitalistic predators. It provides terrific niches for off-the-chart sociopaths. And too many of us who are not have become ingeniously competent at hiding those who are. Paramedics are particularly guilty of willful ignorance. We should know. For decades, our silence cloaked as many doctor criminals as anybody else's silence. But at some point in life, should you harbor an inkling of ethics, you step outside yourself. You appraise your life's work. If you're honest at all, you make the painful decision to balance the slate. You do all in your power to drive a wooden stake through the heart of the vampire. You tell the truth. Now, I wasn't always a heretic, of course. In my salad days, I was as blissfully ignorant as interns tend to be, cheerfully willing to chomp onto that shiny, enticing fishhook called rescue with no fear of consequence. Newbies to most professions are sodden with more limerence than common sense, and those of us who fairly leap into the quicksand of emergency disciplines can be as career infatuated as anybody. The rhetoric of disease and cure is, after all, highly seductive. In fact, it's downright sexy, and that's why so many of us do it. So what's the purpose of the paramedic heretic? Simple. It's time for somebody in our field of expertise to shout Gardaloo from the belfry. It's time that you, healthcare's ultimate consumer, gain the perspective of just how wacky our corner of medicine has become. So the goal here is entirely uncomplicated. You will almost certainly have need to call 911 for medical help at some point in your life, so you might want to listen up, because we just don't think like you do. Before these shows are finished, you will know exactly how we think. And trust us, that'll come in really handy on your next personal emergency. So what you have here is a veteran medic's unvarnished 30-year critique, professional bloodline, a pilgrimage to heresy. And if you're wise beyond your years, you'll become a heretic too. At the very least, when you listen to our shows, you'll know, as the marvelous Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story. We'd like to give a quick shout-out to the EMS teams scattered across our part of California. It'll be a busy weekend for many of them, out in the desert and the mountain communities in Coachella Valley, across the cities of San Bernardino and Ontario and Palm Springs and Indio, Riverside City and Big Bear, Apple Valley and Victorville. We thank the nurses, too, and the doctors and the techs who listen in. Stay safe out there, and we appreciate you listening. These are the folks who make our jobs easy. They forward stories to us, which we get to share with you. When we were researching material for our books, more than 400 medical professionals sent us material. So it's our sincere hope you begin to sense why a professional rescuer might become a heretic. If so, we're making some headway. You're evolving into a skeptic. Your health will thank you later. So you ponder these opening thoughts. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll delve into some cases that should have made a bigger splash in the news, but didn't. Trust us, you're going to want to know this stuff. You're listening to the Inland Empire's Kcaa Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. Don't go away. We're just getting ramped up.
What have I learned so far? Well, I've learned there's no one right path for everyone. I've learned that without my high school diploma, I could only do so much. My options were limited, very limited. I found a free personalized learning program with Learn for Life that has a flexible schedule so I can keep my job while earning my high school diploma. I found a new career with training opportunities that would jumpstart my future. What have I learned so far? I've learned that I could change my life.
Are you 14 to 19 years old and looking for a free high school diploma program with flexible meeting times? This program allows you to keep your job or important family responsibilities while earning your high school diploma. If you've fallen behind on credits or dropped out of school completely, get back on track with free tutoring, a caring faculty, and one-on-one attention. For more information on how to reach your graduation goal, visit learnforlife.org. That's LEARN, the number 4, LIFE.org. Or enroll today by calling 877-360-LEARN. That's 877-360-LEARN.
Empire talks back.
The attitude that, well, the little guy cannot win.
seems to prevail, despite the fact that over time we've seen that the little guy, if he is persistent, he becomes the big guy.
Empire talks back.
No, it's because maybe people figure out a little knowledge is like smoke. It leads to the fire.
Empire talks back.
I think this drive for equality, this drive for justice is gathering steam as opposed to fading out. I think more and more people realize the importance of the freedoms that America represents.
Empire Talks Back with Wallace Allen and Friends, Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. on AM 1050 KCAA.
But now it seems like things are finally coming around.
KCAA, where every day is a great day.
Welcome back to the program. 17 minutes after the hour, you're listening to segment 2 of the Paramedic Heretic. We've got a couple of cool things to tell you about, so let's get to it. It was the fall of 1999, and we stood in an operating room in London, Canada, and we watched a robot perform a heart bypass operation on a 55-year-old man. That was 17 years ago. The experience of witnessing a non-human poking and cutting a twitching heart of a human through a bloody open chest hole was a science fiction mind bend. And we had the fleeting revelation that within our lifetime, people would surely and literally begin marrying robotic partners. You think we're kidding? Well, fast forward to February 2016. Give a listen to this. Title here is, Dude, Where's My Robot? Luke Skywalker had his amputated hand repaired by one. The Transformers had one that actually turned into an ambulance. They have been among us on the Earth, operating quietly since 1985. What are we talking about? Robot surgeons. They're nothing new, and they're not science fiction. But some people are quietly asking whether robot-assisted surgery is such a bright idea, so we decided we'd look into it. Here's what we found. American consumers want the newest, shiniest thing in the operating room, just like they do in their living room or their cars. Americans tend to think that the latest and greatest technology has got to be better. We say, maybe not so fast. Enter the Da Vinci surgical system, the first robotic device ever approved by the FDA for general surgery, and it dominates the field of robot-assisted operations today. In 1985, the Puma 560 robotic surgical arm successfully assisted in a delicate nerve biopsy. That means they removed tissue. That was a first. 2 years later, the first stomach procedure was performed. And in 1988, the Puma was used for an even more complex operation. By 1990, a robot called ASOP was assisting in even more complex surgeries. You see, the Da Vinci, like everything else, is evolving. From the simple arm of the Puma 560, now it is an all-encompassing alien machine comprising assorted surgical instruments and fingers and hands and cameras and scopes. Using a 3D magnifying screen, the human surgeon can sit across the room and he's able to view the operative area with high-resolution clarity. And where the Puma's single arm was a bulky chunk of 1980s robotic technology, Da Vinci offers a 4 slender surgical arms, each one about 1 centimeter in diameter. That would be about the diameter of a pencil. The Da Vinci robot now has a new feature known as the Endo-Wrist 2, designed to duplicate exact hand movements of a human surgeon. So this is no fad. In the last 14 years, the Da Vinci's manufacturer, Intuitive Surgical, has upgraded its robot 10 times. In 2013, robots were used in 420,000 surgeries in the United States. They will likely double that number this year. Intuitive has made all of this possible by direct-to-consumer marketing of its robots. As a result, patients now often demand robotic surgery. I can't tell you how many patients come into my office and say, I want robotic surgery and I want it done with a laser. And if I don't do it, they'll find somebody else to do it. That was stated by Dr. Eric Gendon, an ear, nose, and throat surgeon at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. This is a terrific illustration of how American medicine and the patients tend to fall in love with technology without ever really asking the right question, what are we really doing here? Hospitals advertise the Da Vinci machines as a response to consumer demand. They see the robots as a way to bring more patients through their glass doors, kind of like Disneyland. But hospital advertisements also drive the perception the robots make the best surgeons. As of 2016, according to many surgeons, that just ain't true. Very few hospitals, when talking to their patients, discuss the risk of robotic surgery. Unlike drug companies, hospitals are not legally required to disclose dangers in their advertising. Isn't that a cool aspect of healthcare? In fact, marketing has become such a big deal in drumming up business for robots that one surgeon, who writes in his website, The Skeptical Scalpel, it's actually a terrific website, Skeptical Scalpel, he concludes that, quote, the decline of medicine as a profession began when it became legal for doctors and hospitals to start advertising. To which we add that the American drug epidemic has been well nourished by the constant, incessant, gag me with a spoon and never-ending nausea of drug commercials every minute of every day. Dr. Fabrizio Michelossi is the chair of the Department of Surgery at Weill Cornell Medical Center in New York. Here's what he had to say. Hospitals and doctors are caught in a terrible dilemma. Either continue to deliver the best care possible or respond to market demand. One surgeon said, I don't think it's a good idea for hospitals to keep pushing robots. The administrators are in a volume-driven field where if the competition across town gets one, they feel they have to get one. Interesting observation. We saw the same goofy behavior when it came to the cool trauma centers in San Diego to each have their own competing EMS helicopters. They did everything but shoot each other out of the sky as they raced to trauma patients who almost never needed them. One concern from robot critics is that hospitals are finding they need to buy the machines purely to attract patients from rival hospitals. Some doctors behind closed doors confirm that hospital administrators, who are the gatekeepers of the OR, the nursing staff, and the equipment, are pushing surgeons into doing robotic surgery whether they're necessary or not. Another surgeon was more blunt. He said Intuitive, the company that makes the machines, and their direct consumer marketing of their robots is just plain wrong. In my opinion, it borders on criminal. The mounting disillusionment was also expressed pointedly by Dr. Robert Pearl, CEO of the Paramedic Medical Group. In his column in Forbes magazine, Dr. Pearl cut straight to the issue. He said the problem is the outcome data does not support the hype, and it doesn't support the cost. The cost. You see, a Da Vinci robot is not a cheap date. The Da Vinci robot cost to the hospital is $2 million each. Dr. Pearl claims the device has a built-in obsolescence factor. Each of the robotic arms has to be replaced after just 10 surgeries. That way they have to, keep buying expensive parts for Robbie the OR robot. He says the motivation here isn't safety, it's profit. The manufacturers could have built a robot that could complete 100 procedures, but that would reduce profits. He says robots are driving up healthcare costs in the future, while patient outcomes will remain unchanged. Another doctor, Dr. John Santa, medical director at Consumer Reports Health, says this is a technology that is costing healthcare hundreds of millions of dollars and has been marketed as a miracle. But it's not. It is just a fancier way of doing what we've always been able to do, a whole lot cheaper. Medicine and money. They go together, don't they? Like chimpanzees and bananas. Now there's a company called the ECRI Institute. They're a watchdog group. They're not impressed. They rank robotic surgery among the top 10 healthcare hazards in America. ECRI doesn't fault the robots. Instead, they point to inadequate training at the hospitals that use it. You see, the doctors are still learning how to work with the robot, and learning takes time. Some hospitals require surgeons to perform no more than maybe 3 robotic surgeries in training before they turn them loose on live patients. One of the truly daffy things about the world of medicine is that hospital surgical training policies are kept secret from the public, and they absolutely keep it secret from other hospitals. You know, the other guys are competition. So here we are in 2016, and medical experts are more divided than ever on the benefits of robot-assisted surgery. But one thing you can count on, robots are here to stay. Now that you know that, you're in the perfect frame of mind to absorb this little mind bend. A research team at Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center in North Carolina has created what they call the Integrated Tissue and Organ Printing ITOP system. What does it do? Well, it prints out human tissue for patient transplant. So you know what an inkjet printer does on a sheet of paper, right? It uses tiny jets of ink to spray perfectly generated lettering at very high speed. Now imagine each word printed out on your paper as being 3-dimensional, with each letter tall enough you could feel it on the page with your fingers. Now imagine those letters and words on your paper growing to the size of coins, like nickels and silver dollars, and over weeks they keep getting bigger. Dr. Anthony Atala, director of the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, explains how they actually create 3-dimensional printed human body parts in a journal that's called the Nature Biotechnology. They actually have a website, Nature Biotechnology. Interesting place. In recent years, 3-dimensional printing has emerged as a way to grow complex tissues and organs that can duplicate those of the human body. Of course, the science is still in its infancy, but they are absolutely well on their way towards creating lab-grown human bodies. So who do you want to look like? The 3D printing technology combines a biodegradable plastic-like material and a water-based gelatin. The plastic forms the shape of the 3D structure. The gelatin contains the human tissues and encourages them to grow. The 3D prints also consist of micropores, just like your skin, which act as a sponge to soak up the body's nutrients and oxygen. This helps the structures survive as they develop a blood vessel system, which they need in order to function as a true human body part. The researchers have spent the last 10 years developing the ITOP system, and they have already created functional ears, bones, and muscles. In their work in the lab, Dr. Atala and his colleagues used the system to make baby-sized human ears and then implant them under the skin of a mice. Within 2 months, the ears had formed cartilage and their own blood vessels. The researchers also used the ITOP system and the human stem cells to build jawbone fragments, and within 5 months they began developing their own blood vessels and their own nerves after being implanted in rats. They printed muscle tissue too, and the tissue formed blood vessels and triggered nerve formation in 2 weeks. So the ITOP printer is a remarkable advance in scientists' quest to make replacement body parts. It can fabricate stable human-scale tissue of any shape. Like what parts, you might say? Well, we're glad you asked. This team decided it would be scientifically prudent to create lab-grown vaginas using smooth muscle cells and vaginal skin cells in their little inkjet printer. And then they transplanted these nifty lab-grown chi-chis into 4 teenage girls. Oh, you think we're kidding, right? The girls were between 13 and 18 years old at the time of their surgeries. Researchers followed up with the patients every year for 5 years and examined them. Patients reported how well they were, working. Results from these yearly follow-up studies showed that up to 8 years after the surgeries, their organs were functioning as normal, including sexual functions, such as desire and pain-free intercourse. Dr. Atala says the cool technology proves 3D printing can be used to build ever more complex tissues. We have no doubt. And we have just one niggling question. Does it surprise anybody that when it comes to a group of male scientists gathered together in their one-of-a-kind laboratory behind closed doors, of all the body parts they could start with, they start out crafting customized lady private parts? It doesn't surprise us. In the wacky world of medicine, boys will be boys. Now time for a short break. When we come back, we'll escort you further down the tunnel of the Twilight Zone, where the common theme is medical madness, and bratty doctors not playing well with others. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Steve Aladort from Rancho Financial with the Mortgage Minute. This may be the perfect time to move forward with a new purchase. The feds have not yet increased short-term rates. When they do, we expect both rates and property values to increase. Today, you have an opportunity to qualify for a lower payment and more home than potentially even just a few months down the road. If you have VA eligibility, we can do up to 100% financing. We have loans with as little as 3.5% down, less than 20% down without mortgage insurance. Turned down because you can't qualify with your tax returns? We have special programs that we can use your assets to qualify you, and we have just come out with a bank statement program. If you can't qualify with your tax returns but can show income through your bank statements, we might have a loan program just for you. There are many possible options that could make a huge difference in your monthly payments. That's why you need a loan financial planner. Give me a call, Steve Aladort, at 888-563-1070. That's 888-563-1070, or go to loanfinancialplanner.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready. It's Wolfman Jack.
Sometimes I get to thinking there's just not enough love and romance left in our lives today. And that's why I like to reminisce and to relive that first feeling of love and do it all over again.
Did you boogie with your baby in the back row of the movie show?
The Wolfman's back all the way on KCAA at midnight, Friday and Saturday nights, coming in March. Don't miss the Wolfman on 1050 AM and 106.5 FM.
KCAA. You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
Welcome back. It's 33 minutes after the hour, and you're listening to the Paramedic Heretic on KCAA Radio in the Inland Empire of Southern California. As you may know, our show is divided into segments, of which we have a total of 12 general categories. What follows is the category we call Lab Coat Monsters. You'll find out why in a second. Our question, what is it with Utah doctors and dead wives in bathtubs? A Utah MD got 15 years to life for killing his former wife. Forensic pathologist Dr. Marcela Fierro, in court testimony, said this: "This was an altered death scene, a staged death scene. Someone wants me, an investigator, going in there and looking at this, to think that this lady first cut herself, and when that didn't work, she took an overdose of pills, and when that didn't work, she hopped into the bathtub and drowned herself. And we don't believe it." A Salt Lake City pediatrician was given a minimum sentence of 15 years in state prison last July for the murder of his former wife. He was then immediately escorted out of the courtroom door in handcuffs. Dr. John Brickman Wall, age 51 at the time, was found guilty on March 12 in the death of his ex-wife, Dr. Uda von Swedler, who was a respected medical researcher at the University of Utah. According to court records, the two had engaged in a contentious divorce and a custody battle that had gone on for years. During the trial, numerous witnesses and medical experts for both the prosecution and the defense testified about the death scene where von Swedler was found. The prosecution was able to prove that Wall had killed von Swedler and then staged the scene to look like a suicide. Uda von Swedler was found dead in a bathtub of her wealthy Sugar House neighborhood home. She had Xanax in her system and injuries to her arms and legs. The jury had deliberated the case for 7 hours, and afterwards they spoke of key pieces of evidence, such as the DNA found beneath the victim's fingernails and the scratches on the doctor's face. If you're interested, you can find this one of many doctors killing a doctor cases on our website, medicalmiscreants.com. You can type in John Wall into the search box. You'll also see the link to our articles, as well as the CBS 48 Hours News Magazine program on the case. CBS was good enough to accept our information we sent them several years ago, and it is one of 2 shows that they've produced based on our material. The year before, also in Utah, in September, in the city of Provo, Dr. Martin McNeil, convicted of killing his wife so he could continue an affair with another woman, was also sentenced to serve up to life in Utah State Prison. A judge ordered the 15 years to life sentence to be stacked on top of other crimes the former doctor committed, including obstruction of justice and forcible sexual abuse against his daughter. Altogether, McNeil faces a maximum of 45 years in prison. 4th District Judge Derek Pullen noted that McNeil, at the time a respected position, had lived a double life, was unwilling to give up his marriage to Michelle McNeil or his social standing for his mistress, Gypsy Willis, so he plotted his wife's death. The judge said McNeil secured the drugs to kill his wife, overdosed her as she recovered from plastic surgery, and then drowned her in a bathtub. He left his 5-year-old daughter to find her body. Judge Pullen said a man who has taken an oath to do no harm adds insult to irreparable injury when he handed down the sentence. The family of Michelle McNeil cried and hugged each other as the sentence was handed down. Speaking to the judge, the sister and daughters sought the maximum punishment. They said, while we wept, he laughed. His daughter, Alexis Summers, said, my father is a monster. He has never shown any remorse for the crime. Rachel McNeil sobbed as she described how her family was destroyed by her mother's death. Her brother, a teenager, Damien, killed himself. The loss of his mother. She said, true justice for my mother does not end with the conviction and the sentencing of a murderer. This is where it starts. Throughout sentencing, Martin McNeil appeared to be ignoring what was going on in courtroom. He laughed and chatted with his lawyer, even as his daughters testified. As she spoke to Judge Pullen, Michelle's sister, Linda Clough, turned and faced McNeil. They locked eyes for a brief moment, and she said, Martin, you haven't gotten away with this. Outside court, Clough told Fox News Channel 13 she saw absolutely nothing in his eyes. She said he was up there laughing, he showed no remorse, and I was not surprised. It's the Martin I've always known, and our family has always known. Yeah, there was no emotion whatsoever, just a cold, calculating man who called himself a doctor. McNeil refused to speak at his sentencing. His lawyer left the courthouse without comment. McNeil has already begun serving his sentence at the Utah State Prison, and it'll be up to the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole to ultimately decide how much time he will serve and whether he'll serve life. Utah County Attorney Chad Grunander said, I think he'll die in prison. Doctors killing their spouses. It happens to be one of the most common physician crimes, and it's been going on since the beginning of medicine. Now time for a final break. When we come back, we'll escort you a bit further into the Twilight Zone, where the common theme is healthcare gone loony. In the meantime, you're listening to us on the Inland Empire's Kcaa Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Don't leave yet. We're just getting to the good stuff.
Are you particular about the vitamins and supplements you take? Have you found that the big chain stores simply don't have what you need? Then you should know about the Vitamin Center of Agora Hills. You'll find rock-bottom prices on gourmet, top-quality vitamins and mineral supplements at the Vitamin Center. Get 30% off on all supplements and homeopathic products. All, not just selected merchandise. In addition, you'll find 30% off on all cosmetics, soaps, shampoos, toothpaste, makeup, hair coloring, and lip gloss. And all tea products are discounted 20%. Why go anywhere else? See for yourself at the Vitamin Center of Agora Hills, or check out the savings and place your order online. VitaminCenterAgoraHills.com. Start saving by getting what you need from the Vitamin Center of Agora Hills. And tell a friend that the Vitamin Center ships nationwide. Call 818-707-0005. That's 818-707-0005. The Vitamin Center of Agora Hills.
Hey, buddy, I heard the drought's moving in, muscling in on your turf. To make matters worse, the man keeps telling you to limit your spigot. That drought is bad news, no fooling. But me and my boys can help. The Water Boys, on the Water Zone, Thursday nights at 6. We'll help you protect your turf and save water. And hey, don't worry about it. Consider it a gift.
Yeah, Louie, you heard the boss. We gotta listen in at 6 p.m. on Thursday nights.
Okay, Vinny, you got it. The Water Zone, Thursday nights at 6 p.m. I'll tell our lawn it's now protected.
The Water Zone on KCAA 1050 AM.
For more local radio every day, tune in to KCAA Loma Linda.
Welcome back to the Paramedic Heretic. It's 44 minutes after the hour, and you're listening to the final segment on KCA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. And on this program, we leave no patient behind. All you have to do is tune in, listen up, walk away a little smarter than you were before the show, and we'll do our best to keep you up to date. Every time we do a radio interview regarding the astounding volume of Dr. Crime, at least one person in the audience likes to ask, why would a paramedic become a heretic? Well, here's one of many reasons. In the 3 decades of treating patients, we can recall the faces of each person who lived to walk out of the hospital after our partners and I performed CPR on them. That isn't because we got the world's greatest memory. It's because there are only 9 of them. 9 out of 1,102 resuscitation efforts that we have been involved in. That's what we have to show for the gleeful aspect of our career called CPR Saves. I'll be happy to do the math for you. That's 0.8% success rate. You see, in spite of all the advancements and the recent changes in protocols, the overall effectiveness of CPR remains depressingly low. Precise survival information is nearly impossible to quantify. The best most studies can show us is what happens to specific groups of people under specific circumstances during a given time frame. Research done in 2012 indicates that fewer than 2% of adults who receive CPR in public places recover. Other studies have shown 4%, and at least one other study has shown even higher for patients who received CPR from bystanders and were eventually discharged from the hospital. Of course, a regretful number are discharged to hospice to die slowly in multiple system failure without regaining consciousness. What no research has shown, because it may be impossible, is how many of the so-called survivors actually had heartbeats all along, but simply fainted. Because the fact is, typical folks walking down the street would be hard-pressed to find their own pulse, let alone the pulse of a stranger on a sidewalk next to a rumbling city bus in an unexpected, highly stressful scenario where they feel expected to do something. It is a sad footnote to American society that the public has an almost childlike misconception about the effectiveness of CPR. Much of the blame, we say, lies squarely at the feet of the American Heart Association and the Red Cross, who shamelessly tout CPR with such religious fervor that the public walks away from its CPR classes with the goofy notion that chest compressions restart hearts. No, they don't. Ask any paramedic. Much of the blame also is a direct result of television-created cartoonish myths absorbed by non-thinking citizens. As far back as 15 years ago, a Duke University research team watched about 100 episodes of television medical dramas, such as ER and Rescue 911. They recorded the events of CPR during these shows, how it was administered, what the results were depicted. And what they discovered was a holly weird world where 3 out of every 4 patients lived after their hearts had, quote, stopped. Some of the patients on TV and movies actually coughed a couple of times, grinned sheepishly, and sat up to greet their saviors. I can promise you this. If a CPR patient ever sits up in the back of an ambulance and smiles at his rescuers, you're going to see a team of shocked paramedics flip open the back doors and dive out onto the freeway in fear, because it just doesn't happen. Many of the TV shows were fiction, of course, but the CPR results were beyond science fiction. The only thing more outrageous than the drama is the fact that otherwise conscious adult Americans actually believe such goofiness. In the real world, those fortunate few who successfully survive a heart-stopping event are what we call the healthy dead, such as a healthy person choking, where the airway can be cleared quickly, or a child with a high fever who can be cooled and resuscitated. And of course there are many more. But by far and away, the typical patient whose hearts stop is quite the opposite. The unhealthy dead. Those who suffer from chronic illnesses culminating in lethal, systemic problems. These people almost never survive, and they number 8,000 poor souls every day. In their cases, pounding on their chest is, in our opinion, absolutely wrong. It is unnecessarily invasive, it is cruel, and it has practically no chance of benefit. Many survivors suffer pain that they can no longer even tell us about, you see, because they don't wake up. And that must be about as close to hell on earth as there is. A few years ago, a Japanese study found that 95,000 cases in which CPR had been performed in Japan in 1 year, at the end of that year, only 3% had what you would call a good outcome, a return to a meaningful quality of life. Another 3% wound up in chronic vegetative state. 2% lingered in an in-between phase, not brain dead, but not functional. And the remaining 92% were dead. Here's a quote by Dr. David Newman. He works in the clinical research department at Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York. He says CPR is only useful when the heart stops because of a temporary problem, one that can be reversed or treated. He says what every veteran paramedic knows, but will never tell you. CPR was never meant for trauma, like a car crash. It was never meant for somebody who is deathly ill. Cardiac arrest, which means your heart stops, in nearly all scenarios, is not a survivable condition. And even when we say it works, what we mean is that the heart bounces back, and instead of dying then, the patient dies later in the intensive care unit with tubes and wires and pain and enormous expense for the families. CPR was never meant to be used at the end of a long-term chronic condition. We've gotten confused about where CPR is good, almost a miracle, and where CPR is an abuse. What we too often do is unwanted by the patient, and it is unduly invasive and burdensome to both provider and the patient. It should be done only when there is a substantial chance of full recovery and the patient can safely be presumed to have wanted it in the first place. But in the netherworld of EMS, the mandate is to do anything and everything to try to revive these poor people unless a specific do not resuscitate form is present. Over the years, we've been fortunate enough to know and work with hundreds of doctors. As early as 1979, in college, we were taking notes on their answers to this simple question, and I asked this question many, many times. Doctor, when it comes to you, when your time comes, do you want CPR performed on you? We have always found the responses as revealing as anything in the wide, wacky world of healthcare. Not a single doctor, not one out of 300 plus that we asked, not one doctor has ever said yes. Think about that. Invariably, doctors say a big fat no to the same resuscitation efforts that he or she administers to their patients. Retired Dr. Ken Murray published an excellent article on just this subject in 2012, a magazine called The Guardian. It's entitled, How Doctors Choose to Die. How Doctors Choose to Die. Do yourself a favor. Look it up. It's in The Guardian, on The Guardian's website. What Murray had noted, after decades of witnessing and administering medical care that makes people suffer, most doctors diagnosed with a terminal illness choose to spend their last months at home with no medical treatment. They say absolutely not to major surgeries. They turn down chemotherapy. They turn down radiation. Murray reports that some of his colleagues have actually gotten chest tattoos. So when you open the doctor's chest, his shirt, it says no code, to advise the rescuers to not even think about starting chest compressions on them. Physicians die too, you know, but few of them die in the same way their patients do. What makes a world of difference between the deaths of doctors and the deaths of their patients is the sheer amount of medical treatment that doctors choose to avoid. After investing decades doing battle with the wicked ailments of others, the doctors know the routine. They can generally avail themselves to what is considered the most successful treatments known to man. Guess what? They almost never do. They comprehend the limitations of modern medicine, even while they have been outwardly denying it their entire careers. So they lay the foundation of their demise beforehand. When their time comes, there will be no heroics on them. The last sensation that a doctor experiences will almost never be a 200-pound first aid rescue Randy cracking their rib cage and buying them a few hours or days of hell on earth. One need not be a physician to have seen what we all call futile care. Assaulted by needles, perforated by lances, strangled by tubes, doped up by drugs. All of this starts with paramedics, continues into the ER, and, if you're lucky, extends for weeks in the intensive care unit at a jaw-dropping cost of tens of thousands of dollars a day. Trust us, hospitals love it because there are billions to be made in useless end-of-life resuscitation. The patients don't love any part of it, and what it buys for the patient is misery that we would not inflict on a terrorist. Doctors know too well, as paramedics do, that the common outcomes of chest compressions look like this: rib fractures, sternum fractures, bleeding in the chest, bleeding in the sac surrounding the heart, heart bruising. Oh, there's more: airway damage, tearing the abdominal viscus, lacerations to the liver and spleen, fat emboli in the lung, lung bruising, lung tearing, lung bleeding. To which the highest medically educated people on the planet say, no thanks. Dr. Murray still supports the efforts to teach the public CPR because there are times when the emergency can be solved. But he also thinks it's time for the fresh air of realism when it comes to citizen training. He says people have too high expectations about what's going to happen. They think they're going to do CPR and this guy's going to wake up, and that doesn't happen. What we have seen in our more than 1,000 times of working on patients whose hearts have stopped is there is appalling violence in chest compressions. And even if you retrieve the heartbeat, what follows is an ICU imprisonment, tethered to mechanical devices that most people have never even heard of. In countless thousands of cases each year, if people simply understood how to manage the matter of their own deaths, EMS would not be called, and the 911 system could focus on getting appropriate response to those who might actually benefit. One man's opinion. We thank you for joining us today. We'll be back again next Saturday at 4 for some more eye-opening medical revelations. If you happen to have a professional and ethical caregiver, we encourage you to take them food. Thank them profusely. Send cash and cards at Christmas time. Hang on to them for dear life. Because 50 doctors manage to step into deep doggy poo-poo every single week, and that's just the ones we know of. So you really need to appreciate the good ones. And who else is going to tell you what truly goes on in the twilight zone called healthcare, if not us? The answer? A big fat nobody. Now, if you're interested in more lab coat lunacy, and you certainly ought to be, we invite you to visit our website, medicalmiscreants.com. You can contact us too if you like. PatrickParamedic@yahoo.com. Patrick is Patric. If you care to opine, or you want to send us a story idea, we'll read your thoughts on the air. This program is based on our books, The Paramedic, Heretic, and America's Dumbest Doctors. They can be ordered online via Barnes & Noble and also Amazon. Inside these books, we list thousands of lab coat lunatic cases, at least one of which may be, hey, your doctor. That would be fun. Why not check him out? You've been listening to The Paramedic Heretic, California's Kcaa Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM, and worldwide on the Kcaa podcast. Until next time, be safe and keep this in mind. When a doctor walks into the room, most folks stop thinking. Trust us, that's not the time to be a brain wimp. It's your life, it's your health. Insist on good, complete answers. Bye for now.
Yes, I'm back to stay. Well, I'm on my way back home. Get it? This is for all the lonely people, thinking that life has passed them by. Don't give up until you drink from the silver cup. They'll never take you down or never give you up. You'll never know until you try.
You're listening to KCAA, Loma Linda, California. The best station in the nation.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.
Well, it was Louisville, even though they're not going to be the NCAA tournament this year because of some self-imposed sanctions by the school. Still, number 18 Louisville over Duke today, the number 20 ranked team in the nation, 71-64. And here's Coach Mike Krzyzewski after the game talking about the physical play.
That was the most physical second half that we've ever been in this year. And we weren't able to respond at the